Welcome to our Play Well podcast series. My name is Marguerite Hunter-Blair and I am Chief Executive of Play Scotland, the national organisation for play. Today we will look at how play can be used to support gender equality and lead to better outcomes for all children. To explore this, we will be hearing from Joanna Zawadzka from Zero Tolerance and Susie Heywood as they discuss their projects encouraging gender equality through play in early years settings in Scotland. Joanna is a Campaigns and Engagement Officer at Zero Tolerance, which is a Scottish charity working to end violence against women and girls. Her role involves design and delivery of projects to help boost awareness on gender inequality as a cause of violence against women and improving prevention practices across the media, voluntary and statutory sectors. Susie Heywood is the co-creator of Gender Friendly Nursery, an initiative from NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, which offers training and support to early learning and childcare settings to improve practice around gender stereotyping. She's a public health professional with experience of working on a range of topics, including mental health, suicide prevention, health inequalities, and health education. Here is our Learning and Development Officer, Jenny Lester, catching up with Susie and Joanna to discuss gender-friendly play in early years settings.
Susie, if you could just go first and go ahead and introduce yourself. Can you tell me, what does play mean to you?
Yeah, so I'm Susie Heywood. I am a health improvement senior with NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, working within Glasgow City. And I am one of the co-creators of the Gender Friendly Nursery Project, which has been running in NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde for maybe 6 or 7 years. Play for me, I guess, is a bit about fun, but also primarily for me personally about escapism. And I think maybe that's something that's relevant across. Life can be difficult, life can be testing, and play is a way of kind of taking yourself out of that and just kind of recharging and reinvigorating and having that escape from life. And I think that's something that applies to anyone of any age, actually.
Great. And Jo, same question to you. Can you please introduce yourself and let me know what play means to you?
My name is Joanna Zawadzka. I work as a Campaigns and Engagement Officer at Zero Tolerance, which is a charity organisation working to end men's violence against women and girls. And play for me is hugely important. I think we often forget as adults how important play is, and as children, it helps us to develop knowledge, skills, and aspirations for the future. And speaking about gender and gender stereotypes, I remember that I used to love play outdoors and, get dirty and get muddy. And my family was not very happy about me coming home covered in bruises and scratches because it was not very ladylike. So I think play can reinforce, can kind of limit our opportunities, but it can also open our horizons as well.
And Jo, could you tell us a little bit about the Gender Equal Play project that you've been running with Zero Tolerance?
Okay, so we see gender stereotypes everywhere in children's books, clothes, toys, and entertainment. And we know that these gender stereotypes perpetuate and reinforce gender inequality, which is the root cause of violence against women. And this is why at Zero Tolerance, we created You Can Be campaign, which aims to support parents and carers and childcare professionals to raise children free from restrictions of these outdated social norms. So as a part of this campaign, we created a range of materials to support people who work with children, so they can play and thrive and feel more confident in their play.
And Susie, your work with nurseries, do you take a similar approach? Was it resource creation that you were doing? Can you tell us a bit more about that project?
Yeah, absolutely. So the work that we've been doing was actually inspired by Zero Tolerance and the Just Like a Child resource that they produced a number of years ago. Essentially, what we are doing is trying to promote a whole setting approach to gender inequality and gender stereotyping in particular. So it's very much about offering training and development and tools to support practitioners to connect with the issue of gender stereotyping and to improve their practice across the whole setting. And I guess the approach that we are taking is coming from a public health background, is we look at gender stereotypes not only as being at the root cause of gender-based violence, but actually having a role to play in a number of public health issues that we see across society. So for us, gender stereotypes are very much limiting us all in so many different ways. So our project looks at things like the male suicide rate, it looks at body image issues, it looks at educational outcomes and aspirations, poverty, and begins to unpick with practitioners all the ways in which gender stereotypes have a role to play in creating some of these issues. And I guess what we're hoping by doing that is that all practitioners, regardless of their background, regardless of their gender, will find a way into this issue and will see it as being relevant for them and relevant for the children that they work with. Certainly, it's been our experience that after having gone into a lot of this with practitioners, that they leave our training feeling really determined to go back and make a difference to their practice.
That's amazing. Like the practitioners are so positive when it comes to the training that you're offering. In terms of the training that you're offering the practitioners, do you talk much about play in that sort of training, or Joe in the resources? Susie, you go first.
I guess we recognise, coming from a public health background, that we are not the experts in play, and that the practitioners that we work with are the experts in play. So we absolutely don't go in there with our training trying to teach them how to do play, because that would just be not good for anyone. But I think what we look at is, or we try to help them see play through a different lens, and the ways in which they can utilise play to have conversations with children about gender stereotypes. It helps them to look at the ways in which maybe they can challenge things that come up within play scenarios where maybe gender stereotypes are being, perpetuated. So, for example, one of the things that we do is we look at a scenario, a challenge scenario, where it's, a group of boys who are playing at pirates or something similar, and a little girl approaches and is told that, sorry, this is just for boys. And we explore with practitioners how they might respond to that in ways which don't further perpetuate gender stereotypes, but also provide that opportunity to have those conversations with children to help them begin to kind of challenge these things and question some of these things themselves. So yeah, we're not teaching play, but we are definitely, as early years professionals, play is their bread and butter stuff. So we're just helping them to see that through a different lens, I guess.
Fantastic. And Joe, is that the same sort of thing that's in your resource? How do you use play in that You Can Be campaign?
So our work is very similar to gender-friendly nurseries work in terms of approach. We are not experts in play, but in our campaign, we raise awareness of the fact that play can reinforce stereotypes and limit children's horizons, but at the same time, it can open up possibilities and lead kids to believe that they have more choices. I guess what's important to mention here is that traditionally masculine toys like blocks and puzzles encourage visual and spatial skills, and traditionally feminine toys encourage communication and social skills. So what we're trying to communicate is that if children only play with one set of toys, they are missing out on a whole host of skills. So diversifying play opportunities will help children to imagine and grow unhindered by these traditional gender roles. And I think that's the essence of our campaign. And on that, I think it's also worth mentioning that we're also encouraging mixed gender play, because it can help children overcome their anxieties about playing with other gender children and help them to understand that there are a lot of similarities in what they like to play with, rather than, focusing on gender of the child alone. So yeah, it's all about opening up these possibilities for children.
I think that's so important, Joe, that the mixed gender stuff, because we know that by primary school that the majority of children are playing in single-sex groups, and actually what they're missing out on all those different experiences together. And I think the early years is absolutely where we can get in there and challenge some of that and begin to kind of demonstrate that there's no reason why boys and girls and children can't just all play together.
I find that really interesting in terms of encouraging boys and girls to play together. Is there a specific way that you can do that? Like Jo, you spoke earlier about playing outside. Do you think that's a good way to get boys and girls playing together?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, boys and girls sometimes show different kinds of behavior and make different choices in their play. So where girls and boys play in the same area, they sometimes use it differently. So, for example, the home play area can be dominated by girls, with boys choosing more risky outdoor play. So getting them outside and playing outside together is very important. But at the same time, I think it is not about eradicating all of this stereotypical play. It's about, realizing that, princesses can play in mud and action hero cupcakes can be quite tasty as well. And it's about mixing them up and about giving them this whole range of experiences and opportunities in every setting, at home and also nursery settings. So yeah, that's what our campaigns is about, to ensure that no child feels like certain opportunities are closed off to them.
Susie, I see you nodding a lot. Would you like to come in there?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree totally with what Jo was saying. I think certainly speaking about our approach, we talk about taking an equitable approach to gender inequality. So it's not about pretending that there are no differences between boys and girls. We know that by the time they're in early years settings, the world has already taught them that they should be different, even though we know that that is not the case. So while we're living in a world where these gender stereotypes are so prevalent, we have to recognise that that's the context that children are living in. So we have to be able to work with that. And yeah, bringing children together, giving them opportunities to see that some of this is just stereotypes, and that there's no reason why girls can't climb the tree too, or that boys can't come and join in at the home corner. It's just really, really important. So yeah, absolutely agree with Jo on what she's saying.
Definitely. And once you've trained these practitioners or engaged with practitioners, do you see that sort of increased playing together? What sort of effect do you see your programme having on the children who take part?
Yeah, I guess speaking about ours, actually, the honest answer is we don't know. We've not had the resources to be able to fully evaluate and look at that, and we would love to know. I mean, I think instinctively we would like to think that if settings are bringing in all these changes and all different aspects of their practice, that inevitably it will be having some sort of impact on the children. We don't know that, but what we hope is that we provide, or that settings who fully engage with this work and with things like with Jo's project, that they're creating really safe, secure environments for children just to explore, to be themselves, free from that judgment, that will provide them with a kind of solid base from which to kind of go up and through the schooling system, where we know that these things become more challenging the older that they are.
And Jo, what about yourself? Have you had any chance to see the effect of taking a gender-friendly approach to play on children?
Well, we don't work in nurseries directly, but we do a lot of research and we read a lot of research. And we know that by the age 2, children are aware of their gender. And as early as 6 years old, children associate intelligence with being male and niceness with being female. And that has implications on their behavior and skills development. Because these social norms are very hard to evaluate, the change in social norms is very hard to evaluate. We don't have the concrete data, but some early evidence from nurseries in Sweden suggests that children are just happier, healthier, and they develop better if they have more opportunities to play. More opportunities help children to develop their full potential.
So you've both mentioned that it's been quite difficult to evaluate the programmes, either because of funding or because it's actually quite difficult to evaluate sort of behaviour change in that way. Are there any other barriers that your programmes have faced during rollout?
I guess staff have really engaged with our programme, with our training. We always have plenty of staff come along. The challenge is always what happens when they go back to their setting, and that's primarily due to capacity. There's only a small number of us doing this work within Glasgow City, so there's only so much we're able to offer, and there's a lot that rests on the shoulders of very, very busy practitioners who are already being asked to do loads of stuff. The early years world, particularly in the last few years, is undergoing massive changes. massive demands. There's high levels of staff turnover. So it almost feels like a kind of fourth rail bridge kind of job. There's a constant need to continue to work with settings and with staff and that requires capacity. Our project's obviously Glasgow city based at the moment, so there's a limit to who we can reach through our work, but that's why we are so keen to work with projects like the Zero Tolerance Project, other projects, because there are other people who are focusing on this topic, coming together to really pool our resources and kind of work together to try and create that change that's needed across the whole of Scotland.
Yeah, I would agree with Susie. From my experience working with practitioners, they are very open to do more around gender equality in the early years. But again, it's capacity, and there is a massive need for training, because we do know that practitioners who have awareness of gender stereotyping, they are using this knowledge to tackle gender stereotyping in the early years. So there is something around including this training into their continuous professional development, and this is something that we would really like to see happening all over Scotland. Other issues I think that could pose a barrier to progress of this work is all female staff teams. So we've got a lot of practitioners in caring professions are women, and it is difficult to model how women and men can work cooperatively in the environment where it's always women that are in these caring roles, and it's hard to kind of give children that demonstration of non-stereotypical behaviour if what they see at home is, in a lot of cases, mum looking after children, and in nursery, women looking after them as well. So having them playing at having babies or being monsters or making hospital gives them idea of what they think girls and women can do and what boys and men could do. So I guess the point I'm trying to make, that it is exactly what Susie said, that it's not only about nursery settings, it's about the whole world and the messages that are coming from the books that we read to our children, the TV they watch, the adverts, and so on. In our recent project, we audited over 3,000 books in 21 nurseries in Scotland, and only 5% of all these books contained characters in non-stereotypical roles. So I guess we all have a role to play to challenge these gender stereotypes, and I think we need to have a bigger conversation of why it is important.
I mean, we're talking about social change. That's what we're looking at here, isn't it? We can do our bit in the early years, but we also need everybody to be looking at this. We need employers, we need universities, we need business, we need everyone to kind of get on board with this stuff if we're really going to make that change, because as Jo said, these stereotypes are being reinforced everywhere. And I think once you start to notice them, you start to see them everywhere. So there's lots to be done, but coming from a public health background, we can make big social changes. It's been proven, we look at tobacco use in Scotland, and how people maybe 10, 20 years ago would have said that was insurmountable. We could never have made a difference to, it was so ingrained in our culture, but yet through tackling it at all different levels, we have changed tobacco use in Scotland. So this can be done too if enough people get on board. And I personally believe that looking at it through a public health lens and seeing the impact that it has on us all, no matter who we are, is a way of just getting everybody on board. And I also believe that simple message, which I know Jo is behind too, that we should just not limit children based on their gender, is something that surely nobody can disagree with,
So you've talked a lot there about we need everyone to be involved to encourage gender equality through the early years and beyond. Maybe this would be a good time for you to talk a little bit about if parents or practitioners, not just in the early years but beyond, were interested in getting involved in gender equality and play, and what would you suggest they do?
Jo, I'll let you go first.
Okay, well, I guess for us, is the most important step is to learn about the causes and consequences of gender stereotyping. And a lot of this information is available on our website. So we encourage everyone to visit our website and kind of learn more about it. But also looking at our unconscious bias, we all have been brought up and conditioned to accept these gender norms as a standard. There is something about challenging ourselves in our thinking about the roles of men and women. And once we learn a bit more, I think it will be easier to put that into action and to challenge gender stereotypes, not only in the early years, but tackle sexist objectification of women in our society and contribute to prevention of violence against women.
Yeah, I would agree, Jo. I think that's absolutely right. We all need to kind of go on our little personal journey with this and really explore these issues for ourselves and find our connection with it and what kind of gives us that drive and passion to kind of take this work forward. Because it's not necessarily easy. We are going against a kind of social norm. We are going against what even we've been brought up with and the messages that are ingrained, as Jo said, in our unconscious bias. So it's not easy work. But I think the more that we can educate ourselves, learn from people around us, have conversations around this stuff, challenge gender stereotypes when we see them, the better. I guess from our perspective with the Gender Friendly Nursery Project, obviously if parents or practitioners are within Glasgow, then we would encourage you to speak with your nursery about the Gender Friendly Nursery Project, because we are about to recommence our training delivery and we're looking for nurseries who are keen to sign up. But likewise, if nurseries or parents aren't in Glasgow, it's useful to know the breadth of great work that's happening across Scotland and the variety of organisations that are doing stuff around this. So Zero Tolerance, the Education Scotland, Improving Gender Balance and Equalities team are doing really great work within primary and secondary schools around gender balance. Big campaigns like the Let Toys Be Toys campaign are doing really great stuff, and there's really excellent resources for parents on there around this stuff. So yeah, I think as soon as you kind of open up to this, there's just a world of stuff out there that can support you as you do it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for joining me and having this conversation. It was really interesting to hear all of that. So yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this podcast. Next time, we will be looking at sport and physical activity. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred app and join the conversation by using the hashtag PlayWellPodcast. And find out more about Play Scotland by following us on Twitter @PlayScotland and visit our website playscotland.org.